tonight, you do not need to do anything at all. You do not need to strive for peace. You do not need to search for good sleep. Just let go. Just be present, right with this breath, in the place where the world begins to slow down and your soul gently opens like a flower in the night. The teachings of the Buddha are not meant to be memorized by the mind, but to be felt by the heart. When you listen, each sentence, each word will gently lead you back to yourself, where there is no noise, no need to try to become someone else. If you feel your heart settling, if this voice brings you a little warmth, please subscribe to the channel and join us here every evening where the stories of meditation, the Buddha's teachings, and your breath become one. Now close your eyes, breathe in deeply, exhale softly, and allow your mind to begin the journey into the gentlest stillness, the journey of sleep and of peace. Return to the breath and know that you are breathing here now. There are teachings that do not need bells, no fancy language, and no proof. They are like a path already laid beneath the feet, just waiting for the traveler to stop and notice they are standing on it. The teaching of mindful breathing is like that. Not a complicated ritual, not a method to conquer the mind, and certainly not a sedative. It is so simple, it seems unbelievable. Just return to the breath and know you are breathing. But that very simplicity opens a great door, the door into the deep peace we keep seeking outside while it has never left inside. When you place your hand on your chest and touch your own heartbeat, you are touching the heartbeat of the universe in a tiny form. When you breathe in and breathe out, nothing needs to be achieved. Nothing needs to be removed. There is only life flowing through you, each breath gentle like a breeze. This practice begins with realizing that we have forgotten how to breathe. Throughout the long day, we breathe without knowing we are breathing. The breath is stretched by agendas, accelerated by anxiety, interrupted by the ceaseless dialogues in our head. A part of us always stands on a noisy stage where old roles and old scripts keep replaying, demanding our response, resistance, or proof. But when we return to the breath, the stage curtain falls. Not because we escape, but because that scene was never everything. Beneath every role is the one who breathes. Beneath every story is a quiet sky. Mindful breathing does not promise that you will stop thinking, but helps you see you do not need to be carried away by every thought. Each breath is a step out of the crowd in the mind to stand still on the peaceful ground of the present. You may begin with something very small. Sit down, keep your spine straight, but not stiff eyes, half closed like a door, not fully shut. Inhale gently, as if you are greeting an old friend. Exhale, as if you are sending off a beloved guest. No counting, no controlling, no adorning the breath with any technique. The only thing needed is to know the breath going in, know the breath going out. If a wave of anxiety rises, let it be there like a passing cloud, and you remain the sky. If a memory knocks smile at it like an old visitor, familiar with the exit while you continue breathing. Gradually, you will notice something that seemed trivial, but is miraculous. The breath is not just air going in and out. It is the bridge between body and mind, between the seer and what is seen. On that bridge, you cross to the other side, the side of stillness. Mindful breathing, when seen through the eyes of the Dharma, does not stand alone. It leads us into the second truth, impermanence. A breath is born and dies as soon as it becomes. Every breath is present once in life and then gone forever. No breath repeats, just like no moment is identical. Seeing that you will let go of the habit of fixing everything, you no longer try to hold on to a pleasant moment or chase away an unpleasant moment. You just breathe with it, move with it, until it changes by itself. Impermanence is not frightening when you stop demanding permanence from that which is never permanent. And strangely, just when you stop insisting on stability, you find a steadier peace. The peace of flexibility of a heart that knows how to bow to all change. From impermanence, the breath leads us to another shore, non-self. While breathing, you might look deeply and recognize who is the one breathing. You call that me, but could this breath happen without air, without green trees, without the planet turning around, the sun creating a climate fit for life? The breath comes in thanks to countless conditions beyond you, and when it goes out, it is a small offering to life. You breathe out so the green tree breathes in. Suddenly, the boundary between me and the world becomes thin like mist. Non-self is not about there being no you. It is about seeing that the rigid me was never the whole truth. When the me is less rigid, the suffering attached to me also loosens. We reduce guarding, reduce proving, reduce winning and losing. A breath like this is enough to soften a stormy day. From non-self, the breath opens the door of dependent origination. You breathe in. Thank the clouds that became water. Thank the raindrops that nourished the tree. Thank the tree that became air. Thank all the hands that planted, nurtured, protected a planet wholesome enough for you to sit here and breathe in peace. Seeing dependent origination, you understand that everything is interconnected, and therefore your attitude toward each breath is also your attitude toward life. If you breathe hastily, life will hurry too. If you breathe with care, life will reflect that care in your relationships, in how you listen, in how you place a glass of water down on the table. Each breath is a seed planted in the soil of the mind. Plant gently, harvest gently. Plant peace, harvest peace. And from dependent origination, you will naturally touch compassion. Being fully present in the breath makes you more tender with yourself. When you see you are breathing with anxiety, you no longer scold yourself for being anxious. You just place a hand on your chest and breathe with it. You whisper, "I know. I am afraid. It is okay. I am here with you." Gradually, the habit of fighting emotions lessens, giving way to an attitude of embrace. Compassion is not about doing grand things. Sometimes it is simply staying one more breath with your sadness, not running away, not concluding. And when you practice that with yourself, you will naturally become more gentle with others. You understand why people shout, make noise. Because they are breathing with a storm they do not know how to name. You do not rush to judge. You breathe. Then you look at the other person as you would look at a cloud passing by. When the breath becomes the lamp, you will see the middle way become visible. You do not force yourself to become a statue, nor do you let yourself be swept by every impulse. You only breathe to maintain balance. Too tense, breathe to soften. Too loose, breathe to awaken. The middle way does not live on someone else's lips. It lives in your small adjustments. Drop your shoulders when you notice tension. Pause an extra breath before replying. Sip a drink of water before deciding. Smile at yourself before stepping into a difficult conversation. These things may not seem sacred, but they nurture the sacred truly, a life that is present. You might ask, how can one breath help me sleep deeply? The answer is not a trick, but a redirection. When you breathe with presence, you stop trying to achieve sleep as a goal. You allow sleep to arrive like a friend. You do not pull it. You do not usher it in. You do not bargain with it. You simply make space. Turn off a few lights in your head. Unplug the old dialogues. Fold away the concerns into a drawer labeled tomorrow. Then you lie down. Place a hand on your belly to feel it rise fall. The first 5 breaths may still feel awkward. 10 breaths settle in smoothly. By the 15th breath, you notice your body opening its doors. Sleep does not come because you chase it. Sleep comes because you stop chasing. This practice also invites you to change your relationship with your thoughts. You no longer see them as rulers, but as guests passing through your home. They knock, you hear them. They say a few words, you nod. But you do not have to invite them to stay the night. You keep breathing, tending a small, warm fire in the kitchen. The breath is that very fire. When the guests leave, the house is quiet again. And when guests return, the fire is still there. Suddenly, you discover a new kind of freedom. Freedom is not the absence of thought, but not being owned by thought. There will be nights when the breath does not feel nice. It feels short, rushed, awkward. Do not turn that into a problem. Just breathe with that not so nice breath. Today's breath is today's breath. Just like the sky today might have clouds, wind, or rain, you do not blame the sky for not being as blue as yesterday. When you allow the breath to be as it is, you are learning one of the great lessons of the Buddha's teaching. What is here is enough for practice. You do not have to wait until you are free, calm, or healed to begin. It is exactly because you are busy, worried, or in pain that you need to breathe even more. Something subtle will come to you after enough practice, the gap between 2 breaths. It is a tiny moment, like a hidden passageway in a familiar home. In that moment, there is no holding, no letting go, no coming, no going. It is like the damp sand left behind after a wave pulls back just before the next one rises. When you notice and rest in that space, even for half a second, you will feel the scent of freedom. You do not need to hold on to it. You do not need to possess it. Just know that it is there. The more often you know, that the lighter life becomes. There will be times when you carry your breath into uncomfortable places, an emergency room, a tense meeting, the doorway of an exam. You will realize that breath is not just for sitting in peaceful meditation. It is a lifeline that connects you to presence anywhere. One conscious breath in the middle of honking cars is enough to soften a heated decision. One conscious breath during a conversation is enough to help you hear the deeper meaning in someone's words. One conscious breath in front of a mirror is enough to stop you from comparing yourself to anyone else. The breath is your companion when you are at your peak, and when you are at your lowest, it is you, and it is more than you. If you ask, when will I finally have peace? The answer might make you smile. Peace is not a trophy to be won on some perfect day. Peace is a skill of presence, practiced one breath at a time. You do not find peace like finding a lost item. You relearn peace like an old song your heart still remembers. Every night before bed, you practice singing a few lines through your breath. Every morning before work, you hum a few more through your breath. Slowly, your entire day carries that soft background music. Even if the layers above are sometimes rock, sometimes jazz, and sometimes silence. Peace is just that no need for it to be grand. And one day, you will discover the most quiet lesson in this teaching. Doing nothing is sometimes doing enough. Not doing, in this case, is not giving up. It is stopping the resistance. When you breathe and are present, you allow life to be itself and allow yourself to be yourself. From that, the right actions arise naturally. A less harsh word, a late message that becomes a caring check-in, an old decision seen through new eyes. It all begins with a breath that knows it is breathing. If you wish to go further, you can connect this practice with 3 short reminders. Aware breathing enough. When you feel pulled away, whisper, aware to name your presence. When you feel uneasy, say, breathing to return to the rhythm of life and death. And when you are about to ask too much of life, say, enough to remember that right now you are not missing a single % of the air you need. These 3 words do not need to be written on your wall, just softly engraved into the palm of your hand by your own gentle repetition each night before sleep. Now, you may place your hand over your heart, close your eyes, and try 3 rounds of breath, the first to arrive, feeling the cool air touch the tip of your nose. The second to open, breathing out, and gifting yourself a small smile. The third to release, letting the long day fall from your shoulders like a coat soaked by rain. If your eyes begin to feel heavy, that is not you losing to sleepiness. It is life gently letting you know that the body is ready to rest and the mind has fewer stories left to tell. Let sleep come like a dear friend, walking into the room without knocking, sitting by your bedside, and holding your hand with the soft warmth of breath. And if tonight sleep still does not come, that is okay. This teaching is not tied to any clock. You have planted the seed. The earth will remember. The water will find its path. The light will arrive on some morning to come. All you need to do is keep breathing. Keep showing up. Keep trusting that gentleness will win. not by speed, but by steadiness. Each night, a little. Each morning, a little. Those small pieces become a habit. The habit becomes your nature. Your nature becomes a life that knows how to come home at any moment. Finally, remember, this teaching does not belong to any one person. It does not ask you to believe in anything or to become a good person by any standard. It only invites you to return. When you return, you will see the house was never locked. The fire is still warm. The chair is still there. And the breath, the friend who has been with you since the first moment of life, is still waiting patiently on the porch, smiling, whispering, "We have always been here." That is the first teaching, simple and profound. Return to the breath and know that you are breathing here now. If you let it live in you tonight, you will not only have a deep sleep, you will have a path. And any time you lose your way, just one breath, and we meet again. All formations are impermanent. See this clearly and let go. There is a tenderness to the truth of impermanence that many of us miss at first glance. We hear the words and think of loss endings, the closing of doors. But if you sit quietly and let the teaching sink beneath the mind's quick reactions, a softer light appears. Impermanence is not the enemy of peace. It is the very rhythm by which peace becomes possible. Because everything changes, pain does not last. Because everything moves, a heart can be renewed. Because the river is never the same, you are free to step in again without carrying yesterday's mud on your ankles. Impermanence is not a sentence. It is a permission slip signed by life itself, granting you the right to begin again with every breath. Consider the way evening slides into night. No bell announces the exact moment when day becomes dark, and yet the change is undeniable. Your room dims, the world softens, and another quality of silence enters. Between daylight and nightfall, nothing fails. Everything fulfills its turn. Impermanence is the unforced choreography of this passage. What you heard as noise becomes a distant hush. What you felt as urgency loosens its grip and becomes simply the next thing that will pass. The teaching asks nothing dramatic of you. It invites you to sit where you are and watch the light travel across the wall, to notice how even your thoughts have their own dusk and edge where they fade and the mind grows still. If you listen with the whole of your body, impermanence is already teaching through sensation. The breath arrives, then leaves. The chest rises, then settles. Tiny pulses bloom in the wrists, then soften into calm. Sleep itself is the most intimate tutor of change. Consciousness lets go of its tight fist around the day and opens into a field where images appear and vanish without argument. What you practice while awake, seeing change without clinging, becomes the bridge that carries you into sleep. Instead of wrestling with each thought as if it were permanent, you let it be a cloud. You allow the sky to remain spacious. Rest comes not because the world stopped moving, but because you stopped asking it to stop. Impermanence does not mean apathy. It means clarity. When you know the flower will wilt, you do not love it less. You love it more attentively. You drink in its scent while it's here. You do not scold it for browning at the edges. You do not accuse it of betrayal when petals loosen their hold. Likewise, when you understand that your emotions are weather and not identity, you treat them with a gentle hospitality. Sadness visits you, make tea. Joy visits you, open the windows. Anxiety visits you, sit beside it with a hand on your chest and a breath that says, I know you. You are passing through. You need not exile any feeling to be free. You only need to refrain from building a house for it on your heart's land. To see impermanence clearly, the Buddha suggests a courageous gaze. Not a harsh stare, not a moral prosecution of experience, but an honest, unwavering seeing. This seeing has the quality of moonlight it reveals, without scorching. It shows the fine cracks in a story you've told yourself for years, a story about who you must always be, what you must never feel, what you must forever achieve to be worthy of your own tenderness. Under the light of impermanence, those stories loosen. Their threads are easier to untie because you realize the knot was not made of steel. It was made of habit. And habit, like everything conditioned, can soften and fall away. This teaching also rescues you from nostalgia's trap. Memory is beautiful, but it can turn into a museum where the living heart suffocates. When you bow to impermanence, you honor what was without abandoning what is. You can visit the rooms of your past with gratitude, but you do not chain yourself to their furniture. You can love who you were and love who you are becoming. You can close the book at night without fearing you will forget the story. The pages do not vanish. They simply take their rightful place on a shelf that doesn't need to fall on top of you to prove it exists. The mind often protests if everything changes. How can I trust anything? But impermanence does not erase trust. It refines it. You stop trusting in frozen forms and begin trusting in living processes. you learn to trust the breath's return after every exhale, the body's quiet wisdom to seek balance, the heart's capacity to mend into shapes kinder than before. You trust that grief ripens into compassion when held without resistance. You trust that even agitation contains the seed of stillness, waiting for the moment you stop stirring the waters. This kind of trust is not naive optimism. It is intimacy with reality, and reality, however fluid, becomes a friend when you listen to its music rather than shout over it. Impermanence also reorients your relationship with desire. You need not destroy longing to be free. You only need to see its changing nature. A desire arrives like a wave peaks and dissolves, leaving a trace of salt on the tongue. When you recognize this wave pattern, you don't have to obey every urge. You can ride, let it crest, and watch it fall without needing to jump. In this way, freedom grows not from suppression, but from understanding. You become less a puppet pulled by strings and more a dancer who recognizes tempo and responds with grace. In relationships, the teaching is a balm. You cannot freeze people into your favorite moment of them, nor can they freeze you into yours. To love within impermanence is to love the truth. This person will evolve. This conversation will end. This season of closeness may open into a quieter friendship or return again later in another form. When you accept this, clinging loosens and kindness deepens. You will say, "I'm sorry," sooner. "Thank you," louder, and "I love you," without waiting for a perfect rehearsal. You will see that forgiveness is not erasing what happened. It is allowing what happened to keep moving so it does not block the river from flowing. On the cushion, practice is simple. Sit and watch something change. A sound appears, expands, thins, and disappears back into silence. A sensation tingles, grows warm, fades into neutrality. A thought forms, offers a headline, loses its ink, and slides into the margins. Keep company with these comings and goings, not as a guard tracking intruders, but as a host who trusts the door to open and close. When you notice yourself chasing or banishing, return to the body's anchor, the breath, the contact points with the chair or bed, the subtle play of temperature on the face. Name it softly, rising, falling, warmth, releasing. In this gentle naming, there is no court, no verdict. There is only the humility of witnessing. At night, when the mind is most tempted to re-chew the day, impermanence becomes a lullaby. Repeat silently. This too is changing. Let the phrase meet each worry as it appears. The email unresolved. Changing. The conversation replaying itself. Changing. The tightness in the jaw. Changing. Not as a trick to dismiss what matters, but as an honest assessment of how reality moves. When you stroke each worry with this truth, it becomes less a fixed block and more a passing cloud. Sleep does not require that the sky be empty. Sleep only asks that you stop tying ropes to clouds and calling the sky your prison. There is another secret impermanence protects meaning. If every moment were identical, nothing would be precious. It is precisely because the cup can break that you drink more reverently. Because the morning cannot be repeated, you notice the way light pooled on the floor beside your bed. Because this voice right now is sounding only once, you listen with the ear of the heart. Meaning is distilled through the awareness of endings not destroyed by them. When you understand this, gratitude flows more steadily, not as a mood that visits sometimes, but as a posture of being that bows frequently to the ordinary. What then of suffering? The Buddha points to a simple knot clinging to what changes. The pain of change is natural. Bodies, age seasons shift. Goodbyes occur. But suffering multiplies when you insist that what is changing must not change. The good news is that you can reduce that multiplication at its root. You can feel pain cleanly without the added layers of "it shouldn't be this way. I can't bear it. This always happens to me." Those layers are extra garments you wrap around the wound, making it heavier. Impermanence invites you to unwrap, to let air and light touch what hurts so healing can do what healing knows how to do. None of this asks you to minimize injustice or turn away from action. Seeing change clearly can make you more responsive, not less. If conditions create suffering, then changing conditions can alleviate it. Impermanence is the engine by which compassion works in the world. Policies can be reformed, habits, unlearned systems, reimagined, hearts transformed. The same truth that loosens your private clinging also empowers your public care. You do not wait for perfect certainty before you act. You act with humility, knowing that effort too participates in the great flow of causes and conditions. When fears arise of illness, of loss of your own unfolding, sit beside them as you would beside a child who has woken from a dream. You do not argue with the child about logic. You offer presence. I'm here, you say, with the steadiness of breath. This feeling will change, and I will still be here. In time, the child learns the rhythm of night and morning fear and calm. so do you. Your nervous system discovers that waves can be ridden, that storms contain eyes of quiet, if you stop paddling long enough to be carried by a wiser current. As the night deepens, imagine placing each thought on a leaf and setting it upon a stream. Do not hurry the water. Do not pin the leaf. Watch it drift until it slips around a bend your eyes cannot follow. Another thought will come. Another leaf will carry it. The stream does not grow jammed when you trust its movement. Only when you clutch at leaves do they mass and clog. Your task is not to clean the river with frantic hands. Your task is to remember it is a river. Impermanence invites a vow to meet what comes and to bless what goes. To offer full attention without demanding a receipt. To say yes to the living edge of now, where everything touches you for a moment and then moves along. This vow is not cold. It is warm, with participation. You weep when weeping is true. You laugh when laughter arises. You rest when rest calls your name. And between each of these, you bow a small inward nod to the freedom that grows when you let life be alive. If, as you read this, your eyes are heavy, let them close. The words are changing into quiet. The quiet is changing into sleep. The sleep will change into morning, and morning into the next gentle chance to practice. Before you cross that threshold place, one sentence like a candle at your bedside. All formations are impermanent. See this clearly and let go. You do not need to memorize the doctrine. You only need to feel the relief of releasing what cannot be held. Then, as breath softens and the body remembers how to float, allow the river to carry you. You are not losing anything essential. You are returning to the mother tongue of the heart. Rise, fall, arise, release. And when dawn comes, as it will wake as a student of change, notice the way light curls around objects that were shadows a few hours ago. Notice the mind, fresh and simple, before it puts on its costumes. Notice that even the memory of this night has already begun its gentle drift. Smile, not because you control the flow, but because you belong to it. With each step, whisper the teaching like a blessing for the world you meet. Changing, changing, changing. And in this dance, an inexhaustible invitation to love. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. There is a quiet doorway in the Buddha's teaching that many pass without noticing, perhaps because the threshold is so simple, almost austere, not designed to impress. It is 3 short sentences that move like a gentle tide against the shore of our familiar identity. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. Heard with a hurried mind, they may sound like a denial of life. Heard with a listening heart, they become a key that unlocks the tightest rooms of suffering. The key does not erase the furniture. It simply shows you that you were never locked inside. Tonight, as the body softens and the breath becomes a slow lantern in the dark, we will hold this key and turn it gently, one quiet click at a time, until the door opens to a space where rest is natural, because nothing needs defending. Begin with a simple observation. The body is changing without asking your permission. The chest rises and falls. Warmth gathers and dissolves in the hands. A small ache in the shoulder loosens when attention lands like a feather. If the body were truly mine in the sense of absolute possession, it would obey every command. But no amount of insistence makes a heartbeat pause or a hair refuse to gray. The Buddha's phrase does not ask you to dislike the body. It invites you to relate to it with honesty and kindness, free of the anxiety that comes from pretending to be the owner of the ocean. This is not mine softens the grip. The body becomes less a possession and more a garden you tend. You water, you rest, you nourish, and you stop scolding the rosebush for winter. Now let the gaze turn toward feeling the subtle weather of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral that moves through every moment. A pleasant warmth in the chest blooms when you recall a friend's kindness. A slight contraction appears when a troubling memory floats up. Neutrality spreads like a pale sky when you're neither thrilled nor hurt. These are not problems. They are ripples. But when you declare them mine, you begin to build a story. My joy, I must keep it. My pain, I must never feel it again. My numbness, I must investigate what's wrong. The story thickens. Clinging grows, and with it, fatigue. As you lie here, allow the ripple to ripple without making a crown or a criminal of it. This is not mine, is not apathy. It is a respectful bow to the truth that feeling arises and passes by nature, not by decree. Thought comes next, quick-footed, persuasive, often loud. Thoughts present themselves as headlines about work, about love, about who you were and who you fear you might become. Watch how they arrive uninvited and leave without a formal goodbye. If they were truly you, they could not be observed. If they were truly yours, they would stand still when you told them to. Instead, thought behaves more like weather than identity. You can recognize patterns, predict tendencies, cultivate better climates, but you cannot command a sky to hold one shape forever. This I am not is the gentlest way to step out from under the storm without denying the rain. It is a sentence that returns you to the clear space in which thought appears a space that is not threatened by what passes through it. When the Buddha says, "This is not myself," he does not ask you to vanish. He invites you to release the mistaken project of building a permanent, separate statue called me, and then spending your life polishing, protecting, and parading it. The relief is immediate when you set the chisel down. Without that project, you can participate in life more freely, to love without the fear of losing face, to learn without the dread of being wrong, to rest without the guilt of not performing your worth. The self, as we habitually imagine, it is a tight fist around experience. The teaching opens the hand. Experience remains, but the struggle subsides. In the open hand, sleep arrives, like a bird that no longer sees a cage. Consider how this insight changes your relationship with praise and blame. When praise arrives, the fist wants to close around it mine. When blame arrives, the fist wants to swat it away. Not mine, never mine. But in both cases, the underlying anxiety is the same a fragile identity trying to stabilize itself by fastening to what changes. Seen clearly, praise is a passing breeze. Blame another. Both carry information. Neither defines your essence. Let them move across your field like wind across grass. Without the compulsion to build a fortress or mount a defense, your energy returns to what matters. Listening, learning, living. The night grows quieter when you put down the armor. The heart's deepest labor often concerns love and loss. Here, the teaching is a balm of exquisite precision. To love is not to claim ownership. You are mine. To love wisely is to recognize interbeing. You are with me, and I am with you in this changing dance. When loss comes, as it does in forms small and vast, the grief is real. The teaching does not shrink it. It surrounds it with space. This grief is here. This grief is not the whole of what I am. Within that space, tenderness blooms. You discover the capacity to hold sorrow without drowning, to remember without becoming a museum, to continue without betraying what was. Non-self is not cold philosophy. It is an intimacy so spacious that everything can breathe. Practice it now with the most ordinary things. Notice the weight of your body on the bed or chair. Is that weight you? Notice the sound in the room, perhaps a distant engine, a whisper of air, the small hum of night. Do sounds belong to you? Notice the way a memory taps at the window of attention then leaves? Who invited it? Who dismissed it? If you cannot fully command the appearance and disappearance of experience, then perhaps the wiser stance is companionship rather than possession. The companion walks beside, offers warmth, gives care, and knows when to rest. Ownership exhausts itself with endless control. Companionship nourishes itself with presence. The teaching also clarifies action. If there is no fixed self, to defend action can be guided by values rather than egoic panic. You speak truth because it is skillful, not because you must be seen as right. You apologize because it heals, not because your image must be spotless. You rest because the body is tired, not because laziness is your identity. In this way, ethics become light, and strong light because there's less drama, strong because there's more sincerity. The middle of the night is a good time to feel this difference. Somewhere inside, a small knot unties when you admit, I do not need to be any one particular right now to be safe. The body hears, and the jaw releases. Sleep recognizes the signal. What about fear? Fear often asks, if I'm not this self, who am I? The question assumes a single answer awaits a noun to replace the noun you've loosened. The Buddha offers a verb instead, knowing breathing, loving awakening. Identity becomes a living movement rather than a stone. When fear insists on a tight definition, give it the comfort of consistency that truly exists, the consistency of awareness itself. Through every change, awareness remains receptive, bright, uninjured by what it knows. This is not a thing you can own. It is the openness you are before ownership begins. Rest there for a few breaths. Thoughts may continue. Awareness need not stop them to be itself. Let us visit the realm of desire again now, through the lens of non-self. Desire says, if I get this, I will finally be whole. The teaching smiles softly. Wholeness is not in the object. Wholeness is the absence of the inner split that says you are fundamentally lacking. When you see that the self you are trying to complete is a moving construction, the desperation relaxes. You can still enjoy, choose, create, but with the playfulness of a traveler, not the panic of a refugee searching for a permanent passport. Enjoyment breathes better when you are not attempting to repair your existence with it. In meditation, the practice is mercifully concrete. Sit or lie down and notice a sensation, perhaps the coolness at the tip of the nose. Label it silently cool. A second later, the label dissolves. A warmth rises in the chest. Warm. A sound hearing. A thought thinking. You are not denying. You are naming lightly the way a gardener notes what sprouts. Then add the phrase gently like a lullaby. Not mine, not I, not myself. Not as a hammer, but as a feather. Each time you whisper this, another invisible cord loosened from the bundle we call me. And with each loosening, a little more space for sleep to enter, for peace to settle into its natural chair. There is also the social self, the mask, the role, the avatar moving through the world. Non-self does not require you to burn your costumes. It invites you to wear them consciously, to know the difference between the role and the heart that animates it. You can be a parent without imprisoning yourself in the story that a good parent never falters. You can be a leader without swallowing the poison that a true leader must never rest. You can be a student forever, which is to say, alive. When the costume is mistaken for the skin, nights grow restless. When the costume is known as cloth, nights grow kind. Perhaps the most healing gift of this teaching is how it reframes forgiveness. If neither you nor the other is a fixed entity, then the worst day of your life is not your definition, and the worst mistake of another is not theirs. Responsibility remains. Identity loosens. You tend to the consequences with care while refusing to carve them into your name. The past is honored, not enthroned. In this atmosphere, apology is easier, repair more creative, and trust capable of being rebuilt in new forms. You are not forced to choose between amnesia and eternal sentencing. You can remember and still allow tomorrow to be larger than yesterday. As the night deepens, place your attention on 3 territories: body, feeling, mind. Visit each with the quiet refrain. Body, a pulse in the palm, not mine. An itch on the cheek, not I. The vast presence of lying down, not myself. Feeling a small ease, not mine. A flicker of impatience, not I. A neutral spread of okayness, not myself. Mind a plan, not mine. A fragment of a song, not I. A wordless hush, not myself. You are not pushing anything away. You are recognizing that experience is arriving in your lap, like a procession of guests. And you are the host who has remembered that hospitality does not mean adoption. If sleep has not arrived yet, let the teaching deepen into the heart's marrow. You do not need to secure a self to deserve rest. Rest is not payment for perfect performance. Rest is the native climate of a being who has stopped fighting with what changes. The more you release the compulsion to be someone specific, the more easily the body remembers how to float on the dark water of night. Let the water hold you. Let the breath rock you. Let the phrase be a soft current. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. And if in the quiet a question appears, but what am I then allow the question to be a candle rather than an interrogation lamp? Watch how awareness illumines whatever arises without effort. Notice how love can be offered without a single noun to justify it. Feel how compassion moves through the room when there is no story auditioning for the role of me, the central character. The answer to the question is not a concept. It is this luminous capacity to know and care, this spaciousness that leaves everything free, and in doing so, reveals a wholeness you could never have constructed. When dawn eventually brushes your window, carry the teaching into the day as 3 gentle gestures. First, when something pleasant arises, enjoy it with an open hand, not mine, which is to say, not clutched. Second, when something unpleasant arises, meet it with a steady gaze. This I am not, which is to say, larger than this, able to include without collapsing. Third, when a role calls your name, play it well, and then hang it up at the door when you return home. This is not myself, which is to say, this is a garment for service, not a cage for the soul. Tonight, you have learned the softness that can hold a human life without turning it to stone. You have tasted the relief of laying down ownership where it never belonged, of stepping out of the narrow hallway of identity into the great room of presence. Here, peace does not depend on perfection. It depends on remembering the simple, freeing truth the Buddha offered with such clarity and care. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. Let the words fade into the rhythm of your breathing. Let the rhythm carry you where striving cannot go. And as you drift, know that nothing essential is lost when the small self loosens. What remains is the open hand capable of holding the world gently, then letting it rest. Let go of grasping, and you will see the world as it truly is. There was once a monk named Suda who lived high in the northern mountains where the mist rolled over the cliffs like soft rivers of cloud. He was known for his diligence and for the quiet intensity of his meditation. Day and night, he sat with his breath, tracing each thought to its source, determined to reach enlightenment. Yet despite his efforts, peace eluded him. His face was stern, his back rigid, and the air around him often felt like a bowstring stretched too tight. One morning, Suda came upon an old gardener tending to the monastery's small field of cabbages. The man's movements were slow and unhurried, his face serene beneath the sun. Suda, impatient with what he perceived as laziness, said Old One, how can you waste your time like this? Do you not wish to seek liberation? The gardener looked up, smiled, and said, liberation. I only know how to pull weeds. Then he returned to his work, humming softly. That night, Suda sat under a pine tree and pondered the gardener's words. Let go of grasping, the Buddha had said. But what did it mean to let go truly? He realized that all his meditations had been another form of clinging to purity, to stillness, to a goal he could call enlightenment. His hands, his mind, his very breath had been grasping. From that night onward, Suda began to walk instead of sit. He watched the forest breathe, the fog dissolve, the insects hum. He noticed how the pine needles fell landing wherever the wind carried them. He began to sense that life did not resist itself. Only he was resisting it. Slowly, something softened. His mind no longer chased after stillness. Stillness began to arrive on its own, like dawn approaching a window that never asked for light. The Buddha's teaching was clear and subtle. Let go of grasping, and you will see the world as it truly is. To grasp is to demand that the river stop moving so that you may study your reflection. But the river cannot stop without dying, and neither can you. When you cease insisting that life conform to your expectations, it begins to reveal its natural order, the silent harmony that was always present beneath your noise of wanting. Suda's transformation unfolded quietly. He began to see how grasping had disguised itself in countless forms. He had grasped at knowledge, at reputation, at the idea of being spiritual. Even when he thought he was humble, he was proud of his humility. Even when he gave, he wanted to be seen as generous. The more he observed, the more he laughed, not with mockery, but with tenderness. For he saw that this grasping was not evil. It was merely a frightened attempt of the heart to hold what was already slipping through gentle fingers. One afternoon, a young novice asked him, "Master, how do I let go?" Suda replied, "You cannot let go until you see what you are holding." The boy frowned, not understanding. So Suda led him to a nearby stream. "Pick up a stone," he said. The boy did. "Now hold it tightly." The boy clenched the stone until his knuckles turned white. "Do you feel the weight?" Suda asked. "Yes," said the boy. "Now let it drop." The boy opened his hand, and the stone fell into the water with a small splash. Suda smiled. "Did you have to throw it away?" The boy shook his head. "No," he said softly. "It fell by itself when I opened my hand." That Suda told him is how liberation comes not by force, but by opening. The act of letting go is often misunderstood. It is not indifference, nor is it suppression. It is intimacy without control. When you let go, you do not turn away from life. You turn toward it, free from the need to possess it. A butterfly lands on your palm, not because you chase it, but because your hand is still. To live without grasping is to live as the forest does, fully alive, yet not entangled with itself. Trees reach for the sun, but they do not envy one another. The rain falls, and none of it belongs to any one leaf. The ground receives everything without complaint. When Suda saw this, he understood why the Buddha compared clinging to a hand clutching a burning coal. We hold it because we think it warms us, not realizing it burns. One evening, Suda walked into the village below the monastery. He found a mother scolding her child for breaking a clay bowl. The child wept, clutching the broken pieces, saying, "I can fix it." Suda knelt beside the boy and whispered, "Sometimes the bowl teaches us by breaking." The mother, overhearing, grew quiet. She saw her reflection in her son's tears, her own fear of loss, her own grasping for order in a world made of change. She took the child's hand, and together they placed the shards in a small basket. The boy smiled, and the mother felt a strange peace she could not name. Letting go does not erase love. It purifies it. When love is free of grasping, it no longer demands, "Stay the same." It simply says, "Be what you are, and I will meet you there." Such love is vast enough to hold both joy and sorrow, gain and loss, birth and death. The Buddha's compassion was born from this spaciousness. He did not cling even to his disciples' awakening. He simply pointed the way and let each heart find its own timing. In Suda's later years, people came from far away to seek his advice. They expected great sermons, but he mostly asked them questions. What are you holding right now? Sometimes the answer was anger, sometimes memory, sometimes even hope. And to each, he said, "Good. See it. Know it. Then open your hand." One night, a scholar came burdened with scrolls. "I have studied all the sutras," he said, "but I do not know peace." Suda poured him tea. The scholar began to speak of doctrine, but Suda kept pouring until the cup overflowed. "Stop!" the scholar cried. "Can't you see the cup is full?" Suda placed the pot down and said, "Yes, and so is your mind." The scholar fell silent. For the first time, he understood the weight of his own grasping, not the grasping of things, but of certainty. He bowed deeply. That night, as he lay in the guest room, he dreamed of an endless field where each blade of grass shimmered and disappeared, then shimmered again. When he woke, he felt lighter, as though he had set down something invisible but heavy. To let go is to trust the movement of things. It is to believe that even as the tide recedes, it will return, and what it brings back may not be what you expect, but it will be enough. Suda's garden flourished because he learned to plant without insisting on fruit. Sometimes the season yielded abundance, sometimes only silence. Yet he bowed to both, knowing that both were teachers. The art of letting go deepens with time. At first, you release what is obvious possessions, status, recognition. Then you begin to release subtler attachments, ideas, expectations, identities. Finally, you let go even of letting go. You stop turning release into a project. You live as the wind does, moving through branches, touching everything, owning nothing. As Suda aged, his steps grew slower, but his smile brighter. When he walked, birds did not startle. When he spoke, even arguments softened. It was said that one could sit beside him in silence and feel as though a great weight had quietly lifted. Perhaps it was because he carried nothing that he could share so much. One winter night, as snow fell softly on the monastery roof, Suda sat before the fire. A student asked him, "Master, after all these years, what have you learned?" Suda looked into the flames and said, "The fire burns by letting go of its wood. So do we." The student bowed deeply, tears glimmering. Letting go, then, is not a single act, but a lifelong unfolding, a slow dissolving of the illusion that we must hold life still to be safe. When you stop clutching, you begin to feel the pulse of the universe moving through you. You begin to trust that each ending contains the seed of beginning, that each loss carries a fragrance of renewal. As you listen tonight, imagine Suda's breath mingling with yours, the pine trees outside swaying with the same rhythm that once guided him to peace. Imagine the gardener still pulling weeds in the field, smiling at the soil that never complains. Imagine the mother and the child, now years older, walking together past the stream where the stone was dropped long ago, neither of them trying to retrieve it. Life, when not grasped, becomes astonishingly gentle. You notice the coolness of air entering your lungs, the way light trembles on the edge of your eyelids. You realize that peace is not the absence of movement, but the acceptance of flow. To let go is to step into that flow without demand, to allow life to carry you where you already belong. And if tonight you find yourself unable to sleep, if thoughts cling like burrs to the fabric of your mind, whisper the teaching softly within. Let go of grasping, and you will see the world as it truly is. Then imagine opening your hand not to throw anything away, but to make room for what is already here. The sound of breath, the warmth of the blanket, the vastness of being that needs no control. Suda's story is not about a man who attained something extraordinary. It is about one who stopped insisting that life be anything other than what it is. That stopping is enlightenment enough. So rest now. Feel the slow drift of the world moving gently through your body. The grasping mind loosens, the breath deepens, and within that stillness, the truth shines quietly, as constant as the stars above the sleeping mountain. Nothing to hold, nothing to lose, and yet everything to love. Peace is found not by seeking it, but by being fully awake in this moment. There was once a young seeker named Anaya who traveled from temple to temple searching for peace. She listened to many teachers, collected verses, memorized sutras, and sat for hours in meditation. Yet each time she opened her eyes, the same restlessness returned. She thought peace was hiding somewhere she had not yet been, perhaps in a holier place or a deeper silence. One day, exhausted from searching, she came to a riverside where an old woman was washing clothes. The woman hummed softly, her hands moving rhythmically in the water. Anaya sat nearby, waiting for a moment to ask where she might find peace. But as she watched, the sound of the river and the hum of the woman's song merged into one long, tender vibration. The air shimmered with stillness. Without realizing it, Anaya had stopped seeking. She was simply there. When the woman looked up, she smiled and said, "You have already arrived." That night, Anaya remembered the Buddha's words. Peace is found not by seeking it, but by being fully awake in this moment. The words had always sounded beautiful to her before, but now they began to breathe. Seeking peace had kept her running from what was already peaceful. Each time she chased after calm, she stirred the waters herself. The old woman had not given her an answer. She had shown her the absence of the question. Anaya stayed by the river for several days, helping the woman with her chores. She noticed how each movement was complete in itself, lifting a wet garment, wringing it, watching the water fall back into the stream. There was no hurry, no delay, no resistance. The woman did not call it meditation, yet she lived as if each gesture were a prayer. When Anaya asked how she learned such stillness, the woman laughed. "I do not know stillness," she said. "I only know when I am distracted, I come back." That sentence echoed in Anaya's heart for years. When I am distracted, I come back. It was the essence of the practice she had overlooked while chasing visions of enlightenment. Peace was not a hidden treasure buried in temples or texts. It was the clarity that arises when one stops looking elsewhere. One morning, Anaya sat by the same river and watched the sun lift itself over the trees. The ripples turned to liquid gold, and the mist dissolved. She realized that peace was not in the river alone, but in the act of seeing. The mind that observes without grasping is already at peace. It does not try to capture the reflection. It bows to the movement. She began to travel again, but now her journey was different. Before she had walked to escape, now she walked to arrive in each step. When rain fell, she listened to it without comparing it to sunshine. When she ate, she tasted each grain of rice as if it were the first and last meal of her life. When people spoke harshly, she heard their pain beneath their words. Her practice became invisible, woven into her breathing. In one village, she met a group of monks arguing about which path led most directly to nirvana. One quoted scripture, another cited commentaries, and a third argued about discipline. Anaya listened quietly and then asked, "When do you rest?" The monks looked at her, puzzled. "We are striving," one replied. "Rest will come after awakening." Anaya smiled gently. If awakening means the end of striving, can you not taste it now by stopping for one breath? The monks grew silent. Some laughed nervously, others frowned, but one elder nodded. "Perhaps this is what the Buddha meant by being awake," he said softly. That evening, they all sat together in silence, and for a brief moment, the argument dissolved into peace. To be fully awake in the moment is to stop dividing life into sacred and ordinary. The Buddha ate, walked, washed, and smiled with the same attention he gave to meditation. Each breath was a temple, each gesture a teaching. The heart that is awake does not postpone joy. It does not wait for perfection before resting in gratitude. Anaya continued her journey, and one day she reached a monastery deep in the forest. The abbot there was old and wise, and she asked him, "Master, how can I remain awake when the mind keeps drifting?" He answered, "When you drift, know you are drifting. That knowing is already a return." She bowed, and in that bowing she understood. Awareness itself was the home she had been seeking. The waves of thought would rise and fall, but the ocean of knowing beneath them never left. Peace was not a prize won through effort. It was the natural state revealed when effort relaxes. Years passed. Anaya became a teacher, though she never called herself one. She told stories rather than giving sermons. She spoke of the river, the woman washing clothes, the monks who forgot to rest. People found comfort in her presence because she did not promise anything beyond what was already here. One night, a troubled man came to her. "I have meditated for 10 years," he said. "I have counted my breaths until I can recite them backward, yet my mind still stirs. Tell me what I lack." Anaya poured him tea and said, "Drink this slowly." The man did. The tea was hot, fragrant, and soothing. When he finished, she asked, "While you were drinking, where was your mind?" He blinked. "Nowhere," he said. "I was just drinking." Anaya smiled. "That is all you ever lack." He looked at her for a long moment, then laughed, a sound like something breaking open. Peace is not hidden. It is the unguarded space before the next thought arrives. It is the breath that enters before you remember your story. It is the sound of water touching stone, the warmth of tea against your palms, the steady beat of your heart whispering, "I am here." As Anaya grew older, she spent more time sitting by the river. Her students would ask, "Master, what do you think of when you meditate?" She would answer, "I think of nothing. I listen." And they would ask, "What do you listen for?" She would say, "For what is always speaking." Sometimes she would take them to the riverbank at dawn. "Look," she would say, "the mist rising from the water is the same as your thoughts. Do not chase the shapes it forms. Watch them lift and vanish. The sky is never troubled by clouds passing through." One day, when her breath began to weaken and she knew her body was nearing its end, she called her students close. "Do not cry," she said. "Where could I go? I was never anywhere else." Her final breath was so soft it could have been mistaken for the wind. The students sat in silence, long after, but none felt grief. The river outside sang its endless song, and they knew she had become that song. To live awake in the moment is to live without fear of death, because nothing truly ends. Each moment, like each wave, gives itself entirely and then disappears. What remains is the ocean, vast still and bright. When you understand this, the ordinary becomes holy. Washing dishes becomes an act of grace, walking a prayer, silence, a conversation with eternity. You no longer chase peace. You are peace. Tonight, as you lie in stillness, imagine the river flowing through your breath. Let the sound of your heartbeat echo the rhythm of life itself. Do not wait for the world to quiet before you rest. Quiet is already within you. Let go of searching. Let go of fixing. Let go of the need to become anything more than awake in this single breath. Whisper softly to yourself. Peace is found not by seeking it, but by being fully awake in this moment. Let the words ripple through your chest like the river's song. Let them wash away every boundary between you and the night. Nothing to reach for, nothing to hold back. Only this, the gentle pulse of being alive. Now the story rests, and so can you. Compassion is the natural response of an awake heart. There was a small village that leaned its wooden houses toward a slow river, where mornings were pale blue, and evenings sounded like quiet water speaking to itself. In that village lived a ferryman named Taro, who carried people from one bank to the other in a boat polished by years of palms and rain. Taro was not considered wise, and he did not consider himself a teacher. He was simply attentive. He listened when the river swelled and when it thinned. He watched the light take its time on the surface and leave without complaint. When villagers asked him what he loved most about his work, he would say that he loved returning. Every trip had a return, every crossing an answer. He had once heard the Buddha's words that compassion is the natural response of an awake heart. And though he could not explain them, he felt the truth each time he helped an old woman step into his boat or waited for a child to stop crying before he pushed off. In the same village lived a woman named Sora, known for her tidy garden and the neatness of her days. She washed her steps at dawn, swept the path at dusk, and kept her grief folded where no one could see it. Years earlier, she had lost a daughter to illness during a winter's end when the snow melted too quickly and the world seemed to rush. Since then, Sora moved with careful precision, as if order alone could protect the heart. She avoided the ferry whenever possible and waded across the shallow rocks, fearful that the river might ask her to remember what she had tried so hard to forget. One evening, a stray dog began to linger by the ferry landing. Its coat was the color of wet sand, and its eyes were the color of cedar. It did not beg. It simply watched the river, like Taro watched it, with the same patient seriousness. When Taro finished his last crossing each night, he would sit with the dog and break his rice cake into 2 parts. He did not name the animal. The dog did not ask for a name. They were companions in the way two reeds might be bending in the same wind. The season turned, and with it, the river. Spring loosened the stones. Children played along the banks and learned to skip pebbles. Sora walked to the market with a basket keeping her gaze low. One afternoon, as clouds gathered, she stepped on a slick rock and lost her balance. The basket tumbled. Apples rolled toward the water, red lights in the gray. Sora tried to reach them, and in reaching, slipped. Her ankle turned. She cried out a small sound, swallowed by the wind. Taro had been mending his rope near the landing. He heard the cry and looked up to see Sora sitting on the stones, hands pressed to her ankle, as if holding a bird that would not be still. He went to her and knelt, speaking softly, so as not to disturb whatever memory the pain had awakened. The stray dog stood beside them, tail low, as if guarding a gate. Taro examined the ankle and saw that it was swelling. He wrapped it with a cloth from his boat and offered his shoulder to help Sora stand. She hesitated, pride tugging at her, but another wave of pain convinced her to accept. They moved together, slowly, Taro steady as a post in water, Sora leaning as much as she could bear. When they reached the landing, rain began to fall. Taro guided her into the boat and covered her with his spare coat. He told the dog to wait, and it sat watching, blinking through the rain. Taro rowed with even strokes, the oars cutting the river into gentle lines. Sora stared at the water that had once taken her child, and a tremor moved through her. Taro felt it travel up her arm into his. He did not speak. Compassion, he remembered, is not a speech. It is a presence that does not demand explanation. They reached the far bank, and Taro helped her to her porch. The house smelled faintly of tea and jasmine. When she thanked him, her voice wavered, then steadied. He bowed and turned to leave, but she called him back and offered warm tea in a small cup, steam rising like a blessing. They sipped without words while the rain softened. The dog curled beneath the edge of the porch, its breathing a small tide. In the following days, Taro returned to check on Sora. He brought herbs that reduced swelling, and a story each time, not about spiritual matters, but about the weather. The boat the night, a heron stood so still on a piling that he thought it was a piece of sculpture. Sora listened and found that listening to simple things was like relearning how to breathe. She began to speak a little too. She told him about her garden and the stubbornness of her cabbages, about a cat that came only when she played the same song on her flute. She did not yet speak of her daughter. Taro did not ask. Compassion is the natural response of an awake heart. Taro understood this to mean that compassion does not need to be manufactured. It arises when nothing obstructs it. The way the river reflects the moon when the surface is untroubled. The way a mirror needs no training to show a face. To be awake is to be unafraid of seeing. To be compassionate is to be unafraid of feeling. He practiced this not as a technique, but as a way of moving through his day. When the baker snapped at him because the bread had gone stale in the damp, Taro felt the sting of the words and allowed it to dissolve rather than harden. He saw the fatigue in the baker's eyes and thought of the heat of ovens and the weight of mornings that begin before dawn. He left with the old loaf and made crumbs for the birds. The jug approved and wagged its tail, as if to say that crumbs were a form of grace. One early morning, Sora opened the small trunk at the foot of her bed and took out a faded cloth bundle. Inside were the slippers of her child, pale blue, with tiny stitches at the toes. She had not touched them in years. Her hands trembled, not because she wanted to hold on, but because she feared that even the memory might fray if she allowed it into light. She carried the slippers to the porch and sat watching the river. The dog climbed the steps and rested its head on her knee. She felt a warmth there that did not ask anything of her. Tears came of their own accord. She did not push them away. When Taro arrived with a small jar of salve, he saw the slippers and said nothing. He sat beside her and looked out at the water, the two of them breathing with the same gentle pace. Allowing tears can be a form of compassion. The heart opens the door and lets weather pass through. The Buddha taught that compassion is not pity. Pity stands at a distance. Compassion dissolves the distance. It recognizes the same life moving through every form, and it answers as naturally as a hand reaching to soothe the other hand of the same body. When Sora found that her tears did not destroy her, she felt the first looseness in a long time. She began to go to the market again, and on good days, she took the ferry with Taro, sitting at the front, face turned toward the wind. Each crossing became a small ceremony of trust. News came that a storm had damaged a village upstream. The river brought down fragments of wood, a child's toy boat, a single sandal. Taro gathered what he could and tied the pieces at the landing for reuse. The villagers spoke with concern about those who had lost homes. Sora found herself walking to the temple with a small bundle of blankets and a sack of rice. She placed them near the altar where others had set offerings for the upstream village. As she laid them down, she felt her child's slippers light in her pocket. She had tucked them there to keep them safe. But now she felt that safety meant something different. After a long pause, she placed the slippers next to the rice. A young mother from the upstream village would later find them and hold them to her heart with a gratitude that crossed distance without words. Compassion grows when it is allowed to move. It is not a pond, but a spring. It does not stagnate when it is shared. Taro saw this when a fisherman, who had always kept to himself, began leaving small parcels of smoked fish at Sora's door after hearing of her ankle. He saw it when children who usually teased the stray dog began bringing it bread corners and scratching its ears. Every act of care seemed to invite another. The river did not become fuller because a single bucket of water was poured into it, yet each bucket was an acknowledgement of the river's nature. So it is with kindness. One day, a stranger arrived at the landing, weary and thin. He had the look of someone who had slept under many roofs, and none for very long. He asked Taro for passage, but admitted he had no money. Taro nodded and motioned him aboard. Midway across, the stranger began to speak of his failures, the job he had lost, the family that did not answer his letters the way he had tried to begin again, but felt always as if he carried a stone in his chest. Taro listened without interruption. The dog, who had taken to riding the boat whenever it could, inched closer and placed its head in the stranger's lap. The man startled, then let his hands fall into the coarse fur and cried in a way that sounded like rain arriving after a long thirst. When they reached the far bank, Sora was there with a jar of warm soup. She had seen the man from a distance and had felt without calculation that a bowl was needed. The man ate slowly, then bowed so deeply his forehead touched the wood. No one spoke of merit. No one kept an account. Compassion had simply recognized itself. That evening, the village gathered to repair a section of the river path that had eroded. Lanterns glowed like soft fruits in the dusk. Taro worked alongside the others, hands mud-streaked, shoulders easy. He noticed how work became lighter when no one was trying to prove anything. Sora placed stones carefully, her fingers remembering the exact pressure that held a thing without crushing it. The dog trotted back and forth, inspecting progress, as if the river had assigned it the role of gentle overseer. When the path was finished, the villagers stood back and looked at what they had made together. It was not perfect. It was strong enough to carry footsteps and modest enough not to boast. As the months turned, Sora's garden changed. She planted marigolds near the cabbages to invite bees and to confuse pests. She left one small corner wild so that something untended could speak. Each morning, she carried a cup of tea to the river and placed a single flower on the water. She did it for her child, for the mothers upstream, for the stranger with the stone in his chest, and for herself. The flower never refused. It drifted with the current and was received by distances her eyes could not follow. Giving became her way of staying in conversation with a world that had once felt impenetrable. One afternoon, Taro asked Sora if she would like to learn to row. She laughed and said she was afraid of doing it wrong. He told her that the river did not take attendance for perfection. It welcomed every honest stroke. She agreed and stood at the oars, clumsy at first, then finding a rhythm that felt like walking at the pace of a friend. The dog sat at the bow regal as a small prince. Midway across, Sora felt a stillness that was not absence, but inclusion. It held the sound of the oars, the splash of a fish, the distant call of a vendor, and even the memory of winter without breaking. She understood in that moment that compassion was not something added to life. It was life recognized without fear. The Buddha's teaching is simple in its shape and deep in its roots. Compassion is the natural response of an awake heart. Awake does not mean special. It means present. It means undistracted by the addiction to self-concern. It means the mind rests enough to feel the world as itself. When a heart is awake, it does not calculate whether a person is worthy of help. It does not wait for a guarantee of success. It recognizes the kinship of all things and acts in harmony with that recognition. Some days, the action is small, like waiting an extra moment to let a child finish a sentence. Some days, it is large, like lifting timbers after a storm. The scale does not matter. The sincerity does. There came a winter when Taro grew ill. He slept more and rode less. The villagers noticed the way his breath climbed hills it once crossed with ease. Sora began to make soups thick with roots and greens. The fisherman left fish by his door, now filleted, so he would not have to stand long at a cutting board. The baker brought fresh loaves and did not mention the stale ones of years past. Children tied ribbons to the boat and wrote wishes on paper that fluttered like small birds. Taro received all of this with a humility that did not shrink. He saw that receiving can be another form of compassion, since it allows others to know the joy of giving. He felt the river within him moving as it always had, and he rested in that movement without demand. On a clear evening, near the close of that winter, Taro asked Sora to take him across one last time. They moved slowly along the water stars, beginning to prick the sky. Halfway, he placed the oars in the notches and let the boat drift. He looked up and then at Sora and said that the river had taught him the nature of compassion more than any sermon ever had. It never asked who was crossing or why. It carried. It did not cling to the boat. It did not chase it either. It simply supported the crossing and continued. Sora held his hand and felt the same truth in her palm. When Taro died that spring, the village placed his boat near the landing and used it as a bench. People sat there to watch the evenings arrive. The stray dog, now older, with a white muzzle, slept beneath it. Sora tended the boat as she did her garden, sanding a rough patch, here sealing a knot, there speaking to it as if it were an old friend who still had stories to tell. Travelers asked about the boat, and the villagers would answer that it belonged to a man who knew how to return. Sometimes they would add that he once said, "Compassion is like a river that keeps its shape by never resisting its flow." Years later, a drought came, and the river thinned to a single silver ribbon through the stones. The village worried. Crops yellowed and tempers grew sharp. One night, a meeting was called. Voices rose. Blame searched for a place to sit. Sora stood and said softly that the river would remember its fullness if they remembered theirs. She proposed that those with extra stores of grain share with those whose fields had failed. She proposed that water be drawn in turns, and that the weakest go first. She proposed that the village take shifts to carry water from a spring in the hills until the rains returned. No one cheered. They simply felt a small coolness move among them, as if a window had opened in a room that had grown hot. The plan was adopted. The drought did not end that night, but the meanness did. When the rains finally came, the river widened, and people walked beside it, as if greeting an old friend. The years kept moving as they do. Sora's hair silvered. The tide finally lay down and did not rise. Children who had watched Taro row grew into parents who told their children about a ferryman, who listened about a woman who placed flowers on the water, about a time when the village trusted its own goodness. The boat remained smooth and warm to the touch in summer, cool in winter, a testimony not to a single life, but to the current that carries all lives. If you listen now, you can hear the teaching that held them all. Compassion is the natural response of an awake heart. It does not need a ceremony to begin. It begins when you are not busy being someone in particular. It begins when you see a person instead of a role, a moment instead of a task, a shared breath instead of an argument. It is born when you let your attention rest on another's reality with the same tenderness you offer your own. It is sustained when you remember that the one in front of you is weathered by the same winds that weather you. As you lie in the quiet of this night, you might place a hand on your chest and feel the slow shore of the breath. Imagine Taro at the oars, steady and kind. Imagine Sora setting a flower on the water and watching it drift where you cannot follow with your eyes, but can follow with your trust. Imagine the dog unbothered by philosophy, knowing without words that closeness is sometimes all that is needed. Let your breath turn the pages of this story until the words become only the movement of the page itself. Let the river carry you without question. If a worry arises, treat it as a traveler who has reached the landing. Offer it a seat. Give it a cup of tea. Row with it across without asking it to change its name. When the far bank appears, wish it well and let it step onto its own path. Compassion for your worries is how compassion learns to speak with others. The heart that can cradle its own ache will not be stingy with its neighbor. Before sleep pulls you into its out room, whisper the teaching once more and let it light the space behind your eyes. Compassion is the natural response of an awake heart. Do not try to hold the light. Let it rest. The river is moving. The boat is sound. The night is friendly. And somewhere in the village that lives inside every person, a path is being repaired by many hands, and a bench waits for you to sit upon it, to breathe, to watch, and to remember that you too belong to the current that carries love without effort. In seeing, just see. In hearing, just hear. There was a lantern maker named May who lived beside a narrow canal where reeds whispered and small boats brushed the water with patient strokes. Her workshop was a quiet room with paper stacked like snowfall and bamboo ribs arranged in open fans. Each evening, she lit one lantern and hung it in the doorway. The light did not try to teach anything. It simply shone. Travelers paused as they passed. Some thought of distant homes. Some thought of nothing at all. May liked that the lantern could welcome without speaking. May had learned her craft from her grandfather, who had once told her the words of the Buddha. In seeing, just see. In hearing, just hear. The words sounded simple, so simple that they seemed to hide nothing. Yet when May tried to live them, she discovered how often she added something to what was already here. She would see a customer enter and add a story about whether they would buy. She would hear a distant laugh and add a story about whether people were laughing at her. She began to realize that most of her weariness did not come from work. It came from layers placed on top of what her eyes and ears had already given. One late afternoon, a traveler arrived at her door. He was young with a face that looked older than his years, as if he had carried too many bags through too many towns. He asked for a lantern that could guide him through a mountain pass at night. May showed him several. He liked the gold leaf pattern of one, the quiet red of another, but he could not decide. At last, he said he would return in the morning, and stepped back into the fading light. May stood watching the canal. A kingfisher arrowed across the surface and vanished into reeds. For a single breath, she saw only blue and silence. Then the thoughts arrived again, and the moment was covered. She smiled at her own mind and returned to her table. She began to make a lantern for the traveler. She cut paper so thin that light would move through it, like moonlight through fog. She shaped the frame until it felt like the memory of a circle with no corners where the eye could snag. As she worked, she practiced. In seeing, just see. The scissors on the table, plain and silver. In hearing, just hear. The ripple outside when a boat nose tapped a mooring post. When thoughts about tomorrow arose, she did not argue. She let them pass by the same doorway where customers came and went. The night deepened, and her hands moved without hurry. By the time she tied the final knot, a soft clarity had settled in the room. The next morning, the traveler returned. He stepped inside, and his face softened in the quiet light as if something had unclenched. May showed him the lantern she had made. He held it carefully and tilted it, watching the way the paper held the morning. He asked what the pattern meant. May said that pattern was simply the path the brush had chosen when her hand was not arguing with it. He nodded and paid with a small bundle of coins tied in cloth. At the door he paused and said that he had not slept in months. When he closed his eyes, his mind turned into a market where everyone shouted. May told him that if he wished, he could return at dusk and sit near the canal while she worked. The traveler looked surprised, then grateful. At dusk, he came back. May set a stool at the threshold and lit the evening lantern. The traveler sat and watched the canal. May turned to her papers and began to cut. For a long while, there was only the sound of paper and water and the small movements of a life that did not wish to be grand. The traveler noticed that the light from the lantern did not chase the dark. It simply made a place where seeing felt easy. He thought of the words from a monk he had met long ago, words he had forgotten immediately after hearing them. He tried to recall them now. The effort felt like trying to catch a fish with two bare hands. He let the effort drop. He watched the reed tips bow in a breeze he could not feel. For the first time in many nights, he felt the market in his head begin to close. May spoke without turning. She asked what he heard. He named the obvious sounds. Water, a distant pot lid, the faint scrape of her scissors. She asked what else. He listened again and noticed his own breath. The sound was small and steady, as if the body were a gentle animal resting in tall grass. May said that this was the heart of the teaching. In hearing, just hear, before the story arrives, before the mind uses the sound to build a ladder to somewhere else. He asked what to do when thoughts flooded the room. May said that thoughts can fill only the room they are given. If the windows stay open, wind keeps moving. She cut another strip and placed it with the others. The traveler returned each evening for a week. He sat and did not try to meditate. He practiced doing one thing at a time. When he looked at the lantern flame, he did not call it hope or meaning. He let it be fire. When he listened to the canal, he did not compare it with other nights. He let it be water. Sometimes memories arrived, a face at a window, a promise that could not be kept. He allowed them to visit. He allowed them to leave. On the 7th night, he fell asleep on the stool with his chin on his chest. May covered his shoulders with a cloth and continued working until the flame thinned and the room returned to dark. Word of May's quiet evenings reached other villagers. A widow who could not eat without hearing the last words of her husband came and sat by the door. A boy who stuttered and hated the sound of his own voice came and sat by the door. A merchant who won every argument and lost every night came and sat by the door. May did not declare a school. She did not teach postures. She taught the attention of a lantern. In seeing, just see. In hearing, just hear. People who expected instruction were startled by the absence of complications. People who expected silence were surprised by how alive the silence felt, as if it had nerves and temperature and mood. The widow discovered that when she watched a single leaf ride the current, her sorrow did not vanish, yet it no longer swallowed the room. The boy discovered that when he listened to his breath before speaking, his words found a doorway of their own. The merchant discovered that when he heard the tremor in his own voice, he could also hear the tremor in others, and his debates softened into conversations. No one said they were awakened. They said they were less heavy. They said the night no longer looked like a wall. One afternoon, a scholar came with a notebook. He had heard that a lantern maker was offering a new method. He wished to record it accurately for a book about practices that helped people sleep. He asked May for the sequence. May smiled and pointed to the canal. The scholar frowned and said that canals exist in many towns, and yet few people find peace. May nodded and pointed to his pen. He looked at it and waited for something more. She said that a canal is only a canal, and a pen is only a pen, and that the mind that is busy naming misses the first gift of a thing. The scholar wrote that down. He asked if there was a mantra. May said yes. He brightened and leaned forward. She said the mantra was a single word. The scholar raised his pen. May said that the word was here. The scholar left without a diagram. He felt annoyed at first, then curious, then quiet. That night in his room at an inn, he listened to the clock and the distant footsteps in the hall and the soft chorus of insects outside. He did not evaluate the sounds. He let them be themselves. He fell asleep with the pen in his fingers and woke before dawn with a surprising tenderness for the clock that had kept him awake for years. As seasons turned, May aged. Her hands grew slower, but more precise. She began to paint on the paper as well. Not symbols, not messages, only the movement of a brush that had learned to follow breath. People called her lanterns, gentle. Travelers carried them into mountain passes and across lakes and through long corridors of memory. Some returned to tell her that the lanterns felt alive. May would smile and say that light has always been alive. We only forget to look. There came a winter with heavy snow. The canal stilled and became a muted road. Villagers walked across it as if walking across yesterday into today. During that winter, an old monk visited May. He saw the lanterns and nodded, then looked at the snow where faint footprints tracked the path of a cat. He said that the teaching is not a rule, but a mercy. He said that every addition the mind makes is like a thin veil over a window. One veil does not change much. 20 veils turn noon into dusk. He asked May to come to the small temple on the hill and share what she knew. She said she did not know much. He said that humility is the cleanest cloth. She agreed to come. At the temple, she did what she always did. She lit one lantern and opened the windows. People sat on straw mats. She asked them to look at one thing as if seeing it for the first time. She asked them to listen to one sound until the gap between hearing and naming widened and softened. A woman said she could not stop thinking. May said that thinking is not a mistake, and that the instruction is not to stop, but to include. When thoughts arrive, hear them as a kind of inner weather. Let them continue, and let them be accompanied by the sound of the wind chime and the feeling of the mat and the warmth in the hands. The woman tried, and her face changed not into joy or sorrow, but into something simple that both could rest on. Another asked how to bring this home to a restless family. May said to choose one doorway each day that leads back to presence. Washing a cup, opening a window, touching a shoulder before speaking a difficult sentence. She said that a house that practices one doorway does not need many rules. People understood. They did not leave radiant. They left ordinary and relieved. As the years gathered, the traveler who had first sought a lantern returned as a friend. His face was now the age that it had pretended to be when he was young, yet his eyes were clear. He had crossed the mountain pass many times since, and had learned to carry one sentence with him. In seeing, just see. In hearing, just hear. He confessed to May that he sometimes forgot. She laughed and said that forgetting is part of remembering. He asked what to do when fear rose like a tide in the night. She said to listen first, not to the fear alone, but to the whole room. The breath, the small groan of wood in the cold, the faint sound of snow sliding from a branch. Fear is loud at first, only when it sings solo. In a choir, it joins the music and grows kinder. When May's hands became too tired to build frames, she began to teach younger makers who brought new papers and new brushes and new patience. She told them that a lantern is not a device to push away night. It is a friend that stands beside night. She told them that if they made them with a crowded mind, the lanterns would feel crowded too. She told them that if they made them with a quiet gaze, the lanterns would give that gaze back to anyone who met them. Her students listened and then learned to listen again without needing her words. The final winter came. May could feel it the way a tree can feel roots speak. She sat by the canal on a clear night and watched the stars move information across a sky that had always known how to carry it. The traveler sat beside her. They shared warm tea and the kind of silence that does not need to be protected. Macer said that when she first heard the teaching, she imagined a distant state that would free her from ordinary life. She said that now she understood that the teaching does not remove anything. It gives everything back. It returns sight to seeing and sound to hearing and breath to breathing. It takes off the veils and lets noon be noon. She placed her hand on the traveler's hand. She told him that sleep is a trust. It is the body remembering that the world can hold it. She asked him to promise that when she was gone, he would keep lighting one lantern each evening, and that he would tell anyone who asked that the light is not a charm and not a secret. It is simply attention that has learned how to stand still. He promised. She smiled and closed her eyes. Her breath grew quiet, then quieter, then became part of everything else that was already quiet. After May was gone, the workshop did not close. The students kept the door open, and the reed whispers continued as always. Each evening, a lantern glowed. The traveler often sat by the threshold and listened to the canal. People came and sat as they had before. They found that practice survived the teacher because practice had always belonged to the moment, not to a name. If you are awake in your own room now, if sleep has not yet arrived, you can sit like the traveler and let the sound of your breath be the canal. Do not place a crown on it. Do not place a burden on it. If a thought appears, let it be a bird that crosses the sky of your chest. If a memory, knocks open the door and allow it to step through without interrogation. Let the room be a friend and not a test. Choose one thing to see: the shape of the curtain, the outline of your hand resting on the blanket. Let it be only itself. Choose one sound to hear: the clock, the room, the small animal called heartbeat. Let it be only itself. The market in the head will notice that nothing is for sale tonight. It will dim its lamps and close its stalls. You will still be here, and the room will still be friendly. Whisper the teaching like a promise you are making to a child. In seeing, just see. In hearing, just hear. Let the words turn into a feeling rather than an idea. Let them become the simple way your face meets the dark and the simple way your ears meet the quiet. Then allow sleep to find you in the most natural way. It knows which is to arrive when you are already at home. Nothing is worth clinging to, not even awakening itself. In the mountains of the eastern land, there stood an old monastery built among pines. It was a place where clouds passed like slow thoughts, and wind spoke to the bells without ever asking to be answered. The abbot there was a man named Jinnen, whose name meant natural thusness. People said he had once been a scholar, restless and sharp, who could quote sutras the way others recited poetry. But years ago, he had stopped teaching in words. He tended a small garden, fed the temple birds, and swept fallen needles from the stone path each dawn. Those who came seeking lectures often left confused. They expected doctrine and received silence. They expected a teacher and met a man who laughed easily, who did not seem to hold on to anything, not even his role. One day, a young monk named Aaron arrived. He was filled with hunger for enlightenment. He had studied in 5 monasteries, memorized long passages of scripture, and spent nights without sleep in the hope that a sudden flash of realization would strike him. When he heard rumors of Jinen, he thought, "This must be the one who can give me the final key." He climbed the long path, his sandals soaked by mist, and bowed before the abbot. Master Aaron said, "I have searched for awakening through every path I know. I beg you to show me the way." Jinen smiled and poured him tea. "If you have come for the way," he said, "then drink. The way is in the cup." Aaron frowned, unsure whether this was a test or mockery. He drank the tea carefully, waiting for the master to speak again. Jinen said nothing. Only the faint sound of wind moving through bamboo filled the space. After a long silence, Aaron blurted out, "Is this all?" Jinen nodded. "Yes, this is all." Aaron left the room angry. He thought the abbot must be a fraud hiding behind riddles. But something about the man's calm gaze followed him even into his dreams. The next morning, Aaron decided to stay at the monastery for a time, if only to prove that the abbot's simplicity was foolish. He joined the monks in their chores. He weeded the garden, fetched water from the stream, and meditated with the others in the great hall. Days passed. The quietness of the place was strange. The monks moved as if time itself had softened around them. No one seemed to hurry. No one seemed to seek anything. They simply breathed and acted as if the world were doing itself through them. Aaron's impatience grew. Each night, he sat on his mat, waiting for some sign, some revelation. None came. One morning, frustrated beyond bearing, he went to Jinen while the old man was pruning a small plum tree. Master Aaron said, "I have done everything you asked. I meditate, I work, I study, yet I am no closer to awakening. Tell me the secret. What did you realize that made you so free?" Jinen looked up, eyes clear as water. "The day I stopped needing to be free," he said, "freedom appeared." Aaron did not understand. "Then what should I do?" Jinen pointed to the tree. "See how it bends when I cut the branch. It does not resist. It does not seek to be whole, yet its sap will rise again. Let go of the wish to become more than what you are now." That night, Aaron could not sleep. The words circled in his mind like birds seeking a place to land. Let go. Let go. But what did it mean to let go of seeking, when seeking was all he knew? He felt as if he stood on the edge of a cliff, unable to step forward and unable to turn back. Weeks passed. One evening, a storm rolled through the valley. Rain struck the tiles like drums. The wind tore loose a banner that had hung above the temple gate for years. The next morning, Aaron found the cloth tangled among the rocks downstream. It was shredded beyond repair. He carried the torn banner to Jinan and said, "Master, should we replace it?" Jinan looked at the remnants and shook his head. The wind has already given it a new shape. Aaron frowned, but it no longer bears the temple's name. Jinan smiled. The temple has no need of a name to be a temple. Aaron stared at the cloth and for a moment felt something shift. He realized that he had been trying to inscribe his own name across everything he touched. Even enlightenment had become a possession he wished to hang like a banner over his life. He bowed silently and went to hang the tattered pieces of cloth on a branch near the stream. They fluttered there like white birds returning home. Days flowed into months. Aaron began to understand the rhythm of the monastery. He rose before dawn and swept the courtyard with the others. He learned the sounds of the valley, the drip of melting frost, the calls of cranes overhead, the hum of insects that seemed to sing both joy and sorrow in the same note. He noticed how nothing ever stayed. The tea cooled. The sunlight moved. The monks who laughed with him today might be silent tomorrow. He began to see that impermanence was not a wound, but a kind of generosity. The world was giving itself away, moment by moment, and he was invited to receive it. One afternoon, Jinan asked him to accompany him to a nearby village. They walked in silence for miles until they reached a small bridge where a beggar sat. The man was thin and trembling. Jinan knelt, took out his lunch, and offered it. The beggar ate greedily, tears streaming down his face. When he finished, Jinan bowed to him and said, "Thank you for accepting this." On their way back, Aaron asked, "Master, why did you thank him? You gave him the food." Jinan replied, "He gave me the chance to give." The simplicity of the answer struck Aaron harder than any lecture. He began to sense what the master had been trying to show him, that nothing was separate and nothing could be owned. The giver, the receiver, and the gift were all part of the same motion. When one grasped at any of them, the flow broke. When one released, life moved effortlessly through. That night, Aaron sat by the garden pond, watching the reflection of the moon ripple on the surface. He whispered to himself, "Nothing is worth clinging to." As the words left his lips, something within him softened. For the first time, he felt no urge to analyze or achieve. The air moved through him like a second breath, the sound of fraw, the scent of wet earth, the faint glimmer of stars, all seemed to happen within the same vastness. He did not call it awakening. He did not call it anything. It was enough to sit and see. From that night on, Aaron worked with new ease. When the tea spilled, he cleaned it without frustration. When someone corrected him, he bowed without pride. When joy came, he welcomed it. When sorrow came, he welcomed it too. The monastery remained the same, but the weight he carried was gone. Jinen once told him, "When you truly let go, the world takes care of itself." Years passed. Jinen grew frail, his hands shaking as he held his cup. One morning, he called Aaron to his room. "It is time," he said, "for you to guide others. The temple will ask you to teach after I am gone." Aaron shook his head. "Master, I cannot. I have nothing to teach." Jinen smiled faintly. "Then you are ready." The old man closed his eyes and took one final breath that seemed to blend into all the other breaths he had ever taken. The monks gathered in silence. No one wept. The sound of the wind through the bamboo was enough of a prayer. Aaron became the new abbot, though he never used the title. He continued to sweep, to pour tea, to tend the garden. When visitors came asking for enlightenment, he would tell them stories of the river, the beggar, the torn banner. Some were disappointed, hoping for words of power. Others stayed and discovered that power was in the quietness between one breath and the next. One autumn, an ambitious young monk named Hero came to study. He reminded Aaron of himself from years before, bright, impatient, full of questions. Hero asked about nirvana, about the nature of the mind, about how to transcend suffering. Aaron listened kindly and then led him to the garden. They sat by the pond. "Look at the water," Aaron said. "Tell me what you see." Hero said, "I see the reflection of the sky." Aaron nodded. "Now touch the surface." Hero did, and the reflection shattered into rings of light. "The sky is gone," he said. Aaron smiled. The sky was never in the water. Only the reflection was disturbed. The sky remains. Hero frowned, trying to grasp the meaning. Aaron placed a hand on his shoulder. "When you chase enlightenment, you disturb your own reflection. Let go, and the mind clears itself." In the years that followed, Hero learned slowly. Sometimes he understood, and sometimes he forgot. Aaron never scolded him. He knew that forgetting was part of the way remembering deepens. The teaching lived through their shared silence more than their words. One spring morning, Aaron walked to the same bridge where he had once followed Jinan. The beggar's place was empty. The river ran clear. He stood there for a long time and realized that all his teachers were present in the wind, in the scent of pine, in the pulse of his own blood. He whispered softly, not even awakening. He smiled 'cause he finally saw that there was no one left to awaken, only life itself, endlessly opening and closing like the breath. When Aaron returned to the temple, he found Hero tending to the plum tree. The young man looked up and asked Master what remains when everything is let go. Aaron picked up a fallen blossom and handed it to him. This. The flower was already beginning to fade. Its petals trembled in the wind, yet its fragrance filled the air. Hero understood without needing to say so. He placed the blossom in the palm of his hand and bowed. That evening, the monks gathered for meditation. As they sat, the light shifted from gold to blue, and the first stars appeared. Aaron opened his eyes and looked at the faces around him, some serene, some struggling, all human. He felt a deep tenderness rise within him. He remembered Jinan's laugh, the beggar's tears, the sound of frogs by the pond, and the torn banner still fluttering near the stream. Everything was teaching the same lesson. He spoke quietly so they could hear him through the stillness. Do not cling to what rises or falls. Do not chase the river or build a dam against it. Let the current move through you. If you think you have awakened, bow and keep sweeping the floor. If you think you are lost, bow and keep sweeping the floor. There is no difference except in the story you tell yourself. As he finished, the temple bell rang for the evening meal. The sound carried over the hills, steady and clear. The monks rose. No one spoke of enlightenment. They simply walked to eat, to live, to breathe in the simple grace of the moment. In the quiet that followed, Aaron sat alone beneath the plum tree. Blossoms fell around him like gentle snow. He felt the pulse of life in his veins and knew it was the same pulse moving in the river, in the stars, in the hearts of those who would come long after him. He closed his eyes and let the stillness hold him. There was nothing to achieve, nothing to lose, only the vast, effortless unfolding of things as they are. Nothing is worth clinging to, not even awakening itself. When you understand this, even for a breath, the whole world becomes soft. You can hold it without closing your hand. You can love it without fear of its change. You can rest at last in the simple wonder of being here. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. Only by love is hatred appeased. There was a valley where the mountains folded into one another like sleeping animals, and a river curved through fields of barley and tea. Two villages faced each other across a narrow stone bridge that had no rails, only a low lip polished by centuries of feet. To the east lived the weaver's people who dyed thread in vats of indigo and saffron, who sang while the looms spoke in wooden rhythms. To the west lived the potter's people whose hands smelled of clay and smoke, who listened to the kiln the way sailors listen to wind. The valley had always been one body with two hands until a season arrived when the river ran thin and the wind carried old grievances like thorns. A misunderstanding at the market bloomed into cruel words hardened into pride. Pride gathered friends until it became a wall standing where a path should be. One morning, the bridge was empty and remained empty for months. In the eastern village lived a young woman named Lynn, who had learned to weave from her grandmother. Lynn loved the way colors met, how a thread of deep blue could calm a field of red, how a single line of gold could make a pattern remember the sun. She loved most of all the strange quiet that came when her hands were moving. In that quiet, the past did not reach like a hand to pull her back, and the future did not knock at the door. In that quiet, she felt the nearness of something that had no name. The villagers said Lynn had a gentle nature that could make a restless child fall asleep or a quarrel soften. Lynn did not think of herself as gentle. She thought of herself as curious, always wondering how a harsh knot might loosen if given one more patient breath. On the western side lived an old potter named Rio, whose work was famous not because it was flawless, but because each bowl seemed to carry a small tenderness that survived fire. People said he knew the exact moment to open the kiln, the moment when the clay stopped fighting and accepted its shape. Rio did not speak easily in crowds. He spoke to clay and glaze and heat, and to the long silence that lived between them. When the villages turned away from one another, Rio kept working. Yet each time he shaped a lip for pouring tea, he felt as if his hands were remembering mouths that no longer spoke across the bridge. The conflict deepened when someone painted a crude insult on the low stones near the bridge. No one admitted to the act. Everyone believed their suspicion. As winter approached, all jokes turned sharp. Children were warned not to cross. Markets stopped sharing. Old stories that once ended in laughter were told with bitterness. Hatred made faces look thinner and nights sound louder. The valley felt like a house where two rooms had locked their doors against each other. One afternoon, Lynn carried a bolt of cloth toward the bridge, not to cross, but to look at the river that still recognized both banks as its own. On the stone lip, she saw a small clay cup, poorly fired and slightly warped. It had been placed there with care. Lynn picked it up and turned it in her fingers. Even with its faults, the cup held a softness she recognized. The curve was the curve of a hand that loved its work. On the inside of the cup, pressed into the unfired wall long ago, were two letters, R and Y. Lynn smiled. She knew of Rio, even though they had never spoken. Lynn brought the cup home and set it on her loom, where the shuttle would pass by and see it, or rather, where she would see it, and remember what hands could do when they answered the world with their patience rather than with their anger. She whispered the words she had learned from her grandmother and from the sutras that were sung in the temple at the far end of the valley. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. Only by love is hatred appeased. The sentence felt like a lantern that does not scold the dark. It simply offers a place where seeing is possible. The next day, Lynn carried to the bridge a small square of cloth she had woven in quiet colors, a blue that felt like the river on a clouded morning, a gold that felt like barley under late sunlight, and a single line of white that felt like breath when you are not trying to change it. She placed the cloth on the stone where the cup had sat and walked away without waiting. On the other side, Rio arrived at dusk with a basket of kindling. He looked at the cloth and touched its edge. He did not know Lynn, but he knew the grammar of care. He folded the cloth and held it to his chest the way one holds a warm bowl when winter enters the bones. That night, he slept without the old ache in his hands. Rio began to leave small things on the bridge. A bowl whose glaze had pooled into a softness like the sky minutes after rain. A tiny jar with a lid that turned with a sigh. A cup with a lip shaped to meet a mouth that could be tired or smiling. Lynn answered with fragments of cloth, each one carrying colors that did not shout for attention, and yet were impossible to dismiss. The bridge began to look like a study in small offerings. People on both sides pretended not to notice, then began to loiter near the stones, as if stretching their legs, then dared to touch a bowl or a scarf the way one touches the hem of a dream they long to remember. One evening, a boy from the west chased a kite along the bank, and stumbled on the stones. The kite escaped and drifted across the bridge. The boy skidded to a stop. He looked at the empty span where his parents had told him never to step. On the east bank, a woman saw him hesitate and lifted the kite by its tail. She waved. The boy looked behind him to see if any adult watched. No one did. He ventured a foot onto the bridge, then another, until his small hands received what the wind had carried. He whispered, "Thank you," and ran back the string, bright as a promise. His parents scolded him that night, then held their tongues when they saw that his dream was sweet and his breath untroubled. Into this valley of caution came a traveler whose back carried a wicker pack and whose face carried the lines of many roads. He moved without hurry and listened as he walked not only to people, but to the water in troughs, to the language of donkey hooves, to the sounds that fall out of leaves when they think no one is watching. He came to the bridge and saw the braided trail of gifts. He sat on the stones and waited. Lin arrived with a small bundle. Rio arrived with a small jar of tea. The traveler bowed to both as if they were two halves of one person. They were startled, then curious. They shared tea from the same jar and listened to the river. When they spoke, the traveler asked for no history. He asked what their hands loved. Rio spoke of clay that remembers the shape of kindness. Lin spoke of thread that forgives the slow hand. The traveler smiled. He said he had learned a sentence from the Buddha that fit this valley as a seed fits the cup of its fruit. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. Only by love is hatred appeased. He said love here did not mean a dramatic emotion that announces itself on rooftops. It meant a tension that refuses to strike. It meant care that answers harm with clarity rather than with revenge. It meant the courage to set a bowl on a stone where anyone might shatter it, and the trust to keep setting bowls even if someone did. Rio asked how long such courage must be repeated before a bridge remembers feet. The traveler said that a bridge remembers the moment a single foot does not carry rage. It does not count like a merchant. It opens like a flower that has never learned to lock its petals. Lin asked what to do when insults return like insects at dusk. The traveler said to hear the pain inside the insult, the way one hears the crackle inside firewood that used to be a tree. He said that hearing does not justify cruelty. It prevents us from becoming what we receive. The traveler remained in the valley through the harvest. He did not preach. He mended broken buckets for one village and helped repair a snapped loom string in the other. He ate whatever was offered and bowed to whatever was withheld. Slowly, the people realized that he crossed the bridge each day without a story painted on his face. He simply crossed because the bridge was there. Children began to accompany him to the middle and return. The middle of the bridge became a new country where people rested their baskets for a moment and said nothing. Silence did the work of 10 meetings. One morning, a storm rolled in from the south. The river rose and the bridge became slick. A child slipped, and in the reflex that is older than any wall, 2 arms shot out from opposite sides. One was Lin's, one was Rio's. The child was lifted into safety with a cry that dissolved into a laugh that sounded like sunlight discovering a window. No one spoke. No one needed to. The river carried the rest of the sentence. After the storm, the traveler gathered both villages in the meadow beyond the bridge. He told a story he had learned in a monastery beside a lake where lilies opened at dawn as if obeying a bell. He said there were once 2 monks who quarreled about purity. One believed purity meant separation from all that stains. The other believed purity meant the courage to touch what hurts without becoming hard. They argued for years until a flood came. The second monk lifted strangers onto a raft, while the first monk stood on a rock and kept his robe dry. When the flood receded, the first monk boasted that he had stayed pure. The second monk smiled and said he had stayed human. The traveler let the story end there and watched as the meadow listened to itself. Then he spoke of the teaching again, not as law, but as an invitation that has never expired. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. Only by love is hatred appeased. He said, this does not mean we allow harm to continue unchallenged. It means we do not build our challenge from the same clay that built the harm. It means we protect without poisoning our own well. It means we speak with a steady voice that remembers it is addressing its own relatives. And when we fail and anger floods us, it means we do not justify it with cleverness. We breathe until the cleverness falls asleep and a wiser strength wakes. Lin asked how to practice when no audience is present and no praise will follow. The traveler said to practice in the smallest rooms of the day. Give water to a plant that looks tired. Put aside the first sharp retort and replace it with a question that wonders. Notice the heat in your chest and offer it a cool breath as if you were holding a fevered child. Bow to the person you find unbearable. If not in the body, then in the heart, and then bow to yourself for the effort, even if it looked small from the outside. He said that in the kingdom of causes and conditions, nothing is small. Rio asked how to keep going when the other side returns, old spite like a singer repeating a chorus no one wants. The traveler said to listen for the note beneath the chorus. Often it is fear. Sometimes it is grief. Occasionally it is a pride that is only a frightened child who does not know where to sleep. He said, love is not weakness. It is the boldness to see clearly and to remain soft enough to act without hatred. A soft hand can lift a heavy weight when it has learned patience. The traveler left the valley with the same quiet he had brought. He did not tell anyone he was going. He did not need to. He knew the bridge could now remember without him. In the weeks that followed, people from each side began to meet at dawn to trade eggs for thread and bowls for barley. No one announced reconciliation. No one wrote a treaty. Life resumed its natural language. Hatred still visited sometimes. So did sorrow. But they found fewer chairs to occupy. The rooms belonged again to other guests. Lin and Rio continued their conversation in gifts. One day, Rio placed on the stones a large bowl, not perfect, glazed in a blue that looked like evening meets water. Inside the bowl, he set a folded note. Lin opened it and found a sentence written in a careful hand. For tea shared at the border. She laughed softly and brought a small iron pot. They sat at the center of the bridge where both banks could see and poured tea that tasted like new oak. They spoke of mistakes and of mornings that begin patiently without needing a success to justify their light. They spoke of the way forgiveness grows best when nobody is watching. They drank and watched the river carry away what needed to go. Seasons turned as they do, no matter our decrees. In spring, the barley bent like a prayer. In summer, the kilns breathed. In autumn, the looms sang with harvest colors. In winter, the bridge remembered feet in warm shoes, and also bare feet that wanted to learn winter. The insult on the stones faded and was not repainted. Children began to ask why it had been written. Parents answered that there are times when people forget they are relatives, and that the forgetting does not last because it is not natural. They taught their children the sentence as if it were a lullaby. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. Only by love is hatred appeased. The words did not erase pain. They gave pain a road that did not circle back to itself. Years later, Lin wove a long cloth that held in its body the colors of river and barley and smoke. She hung it across the market, where both villages now traded. Rio placed beneath it a series of bowls that were meant for everyday use. People laughed that the bowls already looked like they had known many winters, even though they were new. Rio said he had learned to give his work a memory of patience in advance. He said it saved time. On a clear evening, when the moon was a small coin, Lin went to the bridge alone and sat where the stone was warm from the day. She remembered the first cup she had found and smiled at how small it had been and how large its meaning had grown. She repeated the teaching to the river and thanked it for listening. She thanked the traveler for being the kind of guest who leaves a door open after sleeping in a house. She thanked Rio for setting bowls in places where anyone could take them or break them, and for trusting both possibilities. She thanked the valley for being one body with two hands, and for remembering that it did not need to slap itself to feel real. If you are awake in your own room now, and a quarrel echoes in you, even if the other person is far away or already gone, you can sit like Lin sat and let the sentence become a lantern in your chest. You do not have to force forgiveness. You can begin with a single breath that does not attack what it meets. Place your attention where hurt is hot, and place your palm there as if calming an animal. Imagine the bridge you know best, whether it is made of stone or whisper or memory. Imagine setting one small bowl upon it. The bowl is your willingness. It is enough to begin. When your mind presents you with old scenes and asks you to choose anger or collapse, offer it a third path that feels like water, finding its level. You do not need to approve what happened in order to free yourself from repeating it. You can say to your own heart that you will not feed hatred, even when it begs, and even when it offers you a quick illusion of strength. You can promise to speak only after your breath has entered and left once, and then once again. You can choose a word that respects the other and also respects you. It will feel simple. The simple often feels like weakness before it becomes a power that does not bruise. When sleep comes, let it come without collecting debts. Let it find you with your hand open rather than fisted around a scorching coal of outrage. If outrage remains, cradle it and tell it a truer story. Tell it that you will protect what must be protected through firm acts that carry no poison. Tell it that you will not let it drive the boat. Tell it that it may ride along in the back where the wind is quieter. When morning returns, it will be smaller. When evening returns, you may find it has learned to rest. The valley endured. The bridge aged with dignity. Some days, the two villages forgot their lessons and needed to remember again. Remembering did not embarrass them. It made them honest. They learned that peace is not a wall you build once. It is the practice of setting down weapons each time you discover them in your hands. It is the courage to keep placing humble offerings where pride would rather place trophies. It is the softness that remains after fire has taken everything that can burn. There will be places in your own life where this teaching asks to be lived rather than admired. When it asks answer, like the river answers the banks. Not with slogans, not with noise, but with the steady offering of movement that carries what should go and returns what should stay. And if you need a friend beside you as you try, imagine Lynn with her quiet cloth and Rio with his patient bowls meeting you at the center of the bridge that runs through your chest. Imagine the traveler walking with you until you no longer need his steps to remember your own. Whisper it once more so the night can learn the tone of your voice. Hatred is never appeased by hatred. Only by love is hatred appeased. Leave the words on the lip of the mind like a cup on a warm stone. Then let them empty themselves into the river of breath. Let the current carry them where they have always wanted to go, into the rooms where old grudges sleep, into the fields where new kindness waits, into the soft turning of the world that is never finished, teaching us how to be kind without fear. And now, dear friend, as our night's story gently fades into stillness, take a long, slow breath. Feel the quiet that remains when every word has settled like dust on morning light. You have traveled through a world of compassion, patience, and peace, not to learn something new, but to remember what has always lived within you. The Buddha's teachings are not distant stars to reach for. They are candles already burning softly in the heart when you breathe with awareness, when you choose kindness over judgment, when you let love flow instead of anger. In those moments, you are walking the path of awakening. There is no need to rush, no need to be perfect. The journey itself is the destination. So before you drift into sleep, let your breath carry a simple wish. May I be peaceful. May all beings be peaceful. Let this wish spread like ripples through the night, touching unseen hearts, healing what words cannot. If this story brought you calm, if it helped your heart rest a little easier, I invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to this channel so that each night you can return here to this garden of stillness to these stories that breathe in rhythm with your own. Until we meet again under another quiet moon, may your dreams be light, your breath steady, and your heart free. Good night.